Immersing the viewer in the hellish conditions and life-or-death nature of armed conflict, war movies have provided a blank canvas for some of the most evocative and unforgettable performances in the cinematic medium. Naturally, with it being one of the most prolific genres in the medium, there have been plenty of films and performances that have snuck beneath the radar and haven't really gotten the flowers they deserve. Many of these performances even feature in more widely lauded and iconic war films, but are generally less talked about either because of a lack of screen time or because of another great performance garnering more acclaim. Either way, let's get into it. I'm Ewan, this is War Culture, and here are 10 massively underrated war movie performances. Number 10. Elias Koteas, The Thin Red Line. Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line is a masterpiece that almost transcends the war movie genre, offering a stark lyrical meditation on the nature of humanity and why we are so compelled to rend ourselves and our planet in two. Less structured than the other 90s World War II masterpiece of its time, Saving Private Ryan, The Thin Red Line sees Malick linger on moments of seeming insignificance, as well as fluctuate the focus of the story. The film boasts an impressive cast rounded out by A-list talent like George Clooney and John Travolta, but screen time for each actor is fleeting. Thus, each performance takes on a new kind of urgency and believability. In other words, they feel lived in. And I would argue the performance that sits at the top of these is Elias Koteas' turn as Captain Staros, the ill-fated company leader who was pressed to sacrifice his men to take a defended Japanese position during the Solomon Islands campaign. Koteas, who you may recognize as Casey Jones in that supremely underrated 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, as well as David Fincher's 2007 masterpiece Zodiac, gives one of his best performances in The Thin Red Line. His character gets relatively little to say compared to Nick Nolte, who dominates the sequence as the commanding officer barking orders, but he renders the most heartbreaking moments of the film. All Staros wants to do is keep his men safe, but it ultimately costs him a trip out of the Pacific and back home. Koteas is matched excellently by Nolte for these scenes, and there's certainly an argument that the latter also delivers one of the most underrated war movie performances as well. Even so, Koteas' portrayal of the overwhelmed but kind-hearted Staros definitely deserves further praise. Number 9. Cillian Murphy, The Wind That Shakes the Barley. Ken Loach's 2006 effort, The Wind That Shakes the Barley, is one of the very best films about the Irish War of Independence and the subsequent Civil War, and at its heart sits Cillian Murphy. Murphy, by this point still relatively early into his career, portrays a young Irishman by the name of Damien O'Donovan, brother to Padre Delaney's Teddy. The film depicts the two brothers as they grow increasingly involved in the struggle against the British Crown, and then become divided over the Anglo-Irish Treaty. Damien sides with the anti-treaty forces, while Teddy aligns himself with the Irish Free State. Typical of Loach's films, The Wind That Shakes the Barley is a raw, brutally poignant entry in the war movie genre. Murphy is electric as the politically fired-up Damien, galvanized by atrocities, and compelled to give everything to the cause, even if that means his own humanity. Number 8. Burt Lancaster, The Train. One of Hollywood's original tough guys with a tender heart, Burt Lancaster is one of the more celebrated names in cinematic history. As such, it's kind of shocking that one of the 4-time Academy Award nominee's finest performances among his extensive filmography often goes overlooked, particularly one that came during the peak of director John Frankenheimer's career. 1964's black and white movie The Train follows Lancaster's French resistance member Paul Labiche. His character is tasked with intercepting a German locomotive carrying stolen art masterpieces back to the fatherland, finding himself up against Paul Schofield's nefarious Colonel von Waldheim. In a war film performance for the ages, Lancaster brings astounding depth and legitimacy to this reluctant hero. He is perfect for the role, conveying an exhausted urgency as he's forced to risk life and limb when the Allies are already so close to Paris, and all to fight a vainglorious officer who will happily mangle anyone to satiate his act of cultural vandalism. Frankenheimer's The Train is a war movie masterpiece, and the final scene where Labiche confronts von Waldheim leaves behind a devastating echo. Number 7. Tom Hardy, Dunkirk. It speaks volumes to the ineffable quality of Tom Hardy's performance in Dunkirk that he has about 10 lines of dialogue throughout Christopher Nolan's 2017 war epic, but still turns in a magnificent turn as Farrier, aka Fortis 1. A Spitfire pilot lending invaluable air support in the skies over the British Channel and the beaches of Dunkirk, Hardy's aviator manages to efficiently and superbly convey a cascade of feelings. Remarkably, or not, depending on your opinions of his performance as Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, Hardy manages to do this despite having his facial features obscured by an oxygen mask for the vast majority of the film. The segments depicting Farrier in aerial combat are nail-biting, and the climactic moment in which he decides to sacrifice the remainder of his fuel serves as a notable highlight for this criminally underappreciated role. Number 6. David Warner, Cross of Iron. Although more at home in the Western genre, Wild Bunch director Sam Peckinpah turned in an all-timer of a war film with 1977's Cross of Iron. Told from the German perspective of the declining Eastern Front in World War II, Cross of Iron follows battle-hardened German soldier Rolf Steiner, played by James Coburn, and his unit as they have a new commanding officer forced upon them, Maximilian Schell's Captain Stransky. Stransky, a member of the German aristocracy, is desperate to win the eponymous award, the highest honor that could be bestowed upon a German soldier at the time, while Steiner and his men are all just trying to survive. Coburn and Schell are both excellent in the film, but it is the late David Warner who arguably leaves the longest lasting impression. Warner plays Captain Kiesel, a shell-shocked, disillusioned Wehrmacht officer who long ago rubbished any notion of battlefield decorum or regulations. He plays only a bit-part role in the film, but his performance crystallizes the one shred of hope it has for humanity, that a world without war could one day come from all of this destruction. Cross of Iron is scathingly bleak, arguably Peckinpah's most unheralded work, and Warner forms a subtle pillar of it. Number 5. Giovanni Ribisi, Saving Private Ryan. While the majority of accolades associated with individual performances within Saving Private Ryan are usually bestowed upon leading man Tom Hanks, special praise must be reserved for Giovanni Ribisi's evocative bow as technician 4th grade Irwin Wade. A medic who survives the initial landing at Omaha Beach, Wade is responsible for several of the movie's most emotionally charged flashpoints. The segments in which Ribisi's soldier poignantly reflects his relationship with his mother, or his desperate attempts to rush to a mortally wounded Capazzo, never fail to tug on even the most iron of heartstrings. Wade's undisguised trauma underlines in brutal clarity just how far the combatants are from the comforts of home. And that's without even mentioning the medic's demise. Ribisi is so convincing as a dying young man terrified of his own mortality that his death is arguably the most desolating fatality throughout Saving Private Ryan. Number 4. Lee Marvin, The Big Red One. It should come as little surprise that Lee Marvin turns in one of the most authentic war movie performances of all time in Samuel Fuller's The Big Red One. One of the finest actors of his generation, Marvin served as a Marine Scout sniper in the Pacific Theater during World War II, earning several medals for gallantry. He was discharged after being wounded in action during the Battle of Saipan, an engagement that wiped out most of his company. Long story short, in terms of gritty authenticity and unwavering authority, Fuller, himself having served in the actual 1st Infantry Division in World War II, couldn't have hoped for a better actor to play the unnamed sergeant in his 1980 epic. Marvin is magnificent in the role, somehow providing a restrained take on a character who has literally been sending young men to their deaths since the previous war in 1914 to 1918. The sergeant is the glue that holds the film's central squad together. Marvin's charge highlights the fact that true military camaraderie comes around as a result of competence, restraint, and a wary resignation to the horrors that soldiers find themselves faced with, as opposed to lengthy speeches about heroism and duty. Truly, one of the greatest to ever do it. Number 3. Melanie Laurent, Inglourious Bastards. Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards saw Christoph Waltz turn in one of the most critically acclaimed performances of the last 2 decades, with the German-Austrian actor earning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his portrayal of Hans Lander. One of the finest war film bows in recent memory often finds itself overshadowed. Simply put, Melanie Laurent is mesmerizing in her role as Shoshana Dreyfus, a French-Jewish cinema owner who saw her entire family executed by Lander when she was 18 years old. Shoshana embarks on a campaign of retribution against Waltz's officer and the occupying German forces. Laurent is utterly believable as a hardened survivor and perpetrator of sadistic vengeance, while simultaneously lending staggering levels of legitimacy to the moments where her mask slips to reveal a traumatized and petrified young woman. Number 2. John Wayne. They were expendable. John Wayne is one of the most legendary performers to ever exist. A symbol as much as he was an actor, Wayne forged a formidable partnership with director John Ford, starring in several westerns by the filmmaker, most famously the likes of Stagecoach, Fort Apache, and The Searchers. They also teamed up for a fantastic war film in 1945, one that was born from Ford's wartime experiences and resulted in one of the most pained and brilliant performances of Wayne's career. They Were Expendable starred Wayne opposite Robert Montgomery and depicted the Japanese invasion of the Philippines and the PT boats that helped to fend off their advance. Montgomery was himself an actual PT boat commander during the Second World War, while Ford had contributed directly to the war effort working for the OSS. He was even wounded while filming the Japanese attack on Midway Island. Wayne, famously, however, did not partake in World War II, partially due to medical issues, but it became a great source of shame for the actor, and it's something you can really feel in his performance in They Were Expendable. Ford was pretty ruthless to Wayne during shooting, even dressing down his actor in full view of the crew for not giving an accurate salute at the scene. And you can tell, because this isn't the swaggering, macho stereotype that would define many of Wayne's post-war roles. It's sad, anxious, almost withdrawn, and it perfectly reflects the nihilistic tone of the movie, which emphasizes the human cost of the war in a way that feels pretty incongruous for the time. It won't be Ethan Edwards or Sheriff Chance for fame or acclaim, but secretly, Wayne's turn as Rusty Ryan in They Were Expendable is one of his greatest roles. And number 1, Christian Bale, Rescue Dawn. Christian Bale possesses one of the most formidable resumes in modern Hollywood. The lauded actor is particularly recognized for his stunning versatility. Bale utterly throws himself into his roles, undergoing shocking physical transformations for his bowels and the likes of The Machinist and Vice. Bale's notoriously underappreciated turn in 2006's Rescue Dawn stands as a cinematic testament to this state of affairs. Taking on the role of real-life Vietnam War POW Dieter Dengler, Bale's dedication to his craft within Werner Herzog's offering is genuinely breathtaking. Losing a significant amount of weight to lend authenticity to his portrayal of the emaciated Dengler, Bale produces a raw and emotionally charged performance of the highest caliber. And despite receiving widespread acclaim, Rescue Dawn was a box office bomb. Bale's performance was somehow completely overlooked by critics, failing to garner a single major accolade during the 2006 awards season. Not that it takes away from just how good a performance he gives. And those were 10 massively underrated war movie performances. Do you have any faves you think need more love and attention? Shout them out down in the comments below, and don't forget to drop the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want more. Either way, I've been Ewan, this has been War Culture, and I'll hopefully catch you next time. Bye!